Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 193 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I am your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I am a speaker and a two-time author. Our second book, From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing, is available now. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, today we're going to be talking about tutoring college students, and I always talk about this as the hidden gem for today's fraternities and sororities. Academics are very important to today's students. So if you have brothers or sisters that really excel in common classes, such as calculus, for example, instead of advertising recruitment events, advertise their tutoring services with a name, cell phone, and email address. You're going to get a ton of responses from other students that are looking for help. And once you help them overcome their academic struggles, there is no doubt that they will be an outstanding member of your organization. Talk about building a potential new member list without the need for a big event. It's all about the relationship. Our next guest is Joanne Kaminski. In an effort to be more present for her own children, she started her own reading tutoring business. She didn't follow the traditional method of starting an online tutoring company, which she actually believes has led her to the success that she now has. Joanne has worked with students in Australia, London, Canada, the Dominican Republic, and kids from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast in the United States. Joanne has now dedicated her life to teaching other people how to start an independent online tutoring business. She then helps them to book their own online tutoring business solid, so that way they can be more present for their families and have the freedom and flexibility that they could only once dreamed of. This is also something that I think many college students do as well. So we can't wait to hear some more about all of this. Welcome to the show, Joanne.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I can't wait to jump into this topic. You know, when you and I met, I said, this is somebody that absolutely needs to meet our college student listeners, because I just think the whole thing is fascinating. Talking about tutoring and college campuses, having a side hustle and making some extra money. I mean, all of this really just kind of blends perfectly with our college student listeners. But I want to make sure that they know all about you and your background. You decided on Marquette University for your undergraduate experience, and you also graduated cum laude, so that's very nice. So why was Marquette University the best choice for you?
Oh, isn't this a fun story? Because actually I wanted to become a lawyer. So, we don't know what we really want sometimes when we are, juniors and seniors in high school. And I really wanted to be a lawyer and really prove to my family that I could kind of be someone, right? And I went to Marquette University and I ended up joining the mock trial group, and I loved acting, so it was perfect for me. But while I was doing that, I found that law wasn't a right fit for me. I learned some things about the law, like if you know somebody is wrong, then you still have to stand up for them as their lawyer. And these kinds of things just like morally broke my compass. And I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't the path for me. What am I going to do? And then I decided to go into teaching and become a teacher. I'm not sure that teaching was the best fit for me at Marquette University because it's a very pricey tag for going into the teaching world. But I did love my experience, and I loved the people that I had surrounded myself with.
Yeah, that's a great story. And I like that brutal honesty. I mean, sometimes you go into college with one idea in mind, you start getting into some of the classes, and then you're like, oh no, this is not going to be a good fit. And you know what? It's probably best that you figured that out in college rather than getting out in the real world and then realizing you really don't want to be an attorney. But at that point, you're already invested in law school and
Yep.
everything else, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's why we have all these gen ed classes. This is why this college is a 4-year experience, because you really kind of have to find yourself and figure out, is this
Mhm.
really the right fit for you or not? Sometimes it works out perfectly. Many times it doesn't. So I like
Yeah.
that brutal honesty. I think that's helpful our listeners for sure. So you also held several positions at the Milwaukee Academy of Science for over 7 years. You were a teacher for 3 years. You were an Edison trainer. You were a reading curriculum coordinator. So I'm wondering, how did all of those experiences shape who you are today?
Well, as a classroom teacher, I began realizing where the true gaps for kids really are. 30% of our kids were on grade level with reading, and it broke my heart that most of the kids that I was teaching as a third grade teacher couldn't actually read. And so here I am, I'm having to teach kids third grade curriculum to kids that can't read. And so I started realizing where the big gap was, and I became invested in learning everything that I could about reading. And as an Edison trainer, I was asked to teach our teachers all over the country how to teach our reading program, because they could tell I was really passionate about this and really wanting to help in that area. And then when I had kids, that's when my life began to change. And I approached the principal and I said, okay, teaching in the classroom is not going to be a good fit for me because I'm pregnant and I'm going to have this baby, and I cannot work the types of hours that I'm working, because I was traveling the country as an Edison trainer. I was working in the classroom. I'm like, something's got to change. And I said, and I might be leaving. And she was like, no, you can't leave. She goes, the reading curriculum coordinator position is coming on up. I want you to take it. And this was like a blessing to me, because that meant I don't have to correct papers anymore in the weekends. I don't have to do any lesson planning. I could kind of work that 8 hour, kind of dream job idea, whatever that is, right? Throughout the week, and then be present for my kids. And so that's what I ended up doing for the next 5 years is really focusing on that. And while I did that, because I can't just do things easy, I decided to go back to school and get my license as a reading specialist so that I could do that full time. And that really all switched into like this passion. Like I just was constantly passionate about learning everything I could about reading and helping others learn everything about reading so that we could do something about those 70% of kids that weren't reading on grade level.
I love that. I'm so glad that you found your passion, because I can see clearly this is something you believe in. And I love that when you find that. I think it's an amazing thing. You also noticed there was a bigger problem in your school because every year you had a 50% teacher turnover rate. The only teachers that they were able to hire were first year teachers. And these first year teachers struggled with classroom management as much as you did as a new teacher. So how can we teach classroom management more effectively for all of these new teachers?
Yeah, they absolutely need a class in it for sure. One, two, I don't know. Like it is the number one thing that's going to allow you to be successful in the classroom. If you don't have classroom management techniques, there isn't any amount of knowledge that you could possibly have that you're going to be able to teach these kids. I had so many behavior problems inside of the classroom that I specifically was working in my first year. I had kids that would I had one little boy, he would take his head and he would bang it on a metal cabinet that we had until it would bleed to get attention. I had another kid who was homeless and literally would crawl around the floor like he was a dog. I had other kids that they just wanted to get a rise out of the other kids. So they would kick each other like underneath the tables. Now imagine trying to teach a classroom anything, especially these kids that they can't read on grade level, when you've got all of these behaviors that you're trying to manage. Classroom management is a course that has to start being taught in the college system, because this is why so many teachers leave the school system, and there's very little support for teachers. I mean, when I was a kid, if you did something wrong, you went to the principal's office. No longer are you even really allowed to send a kid to the principal's office because your entire class would be down there, especially when you're teaching in the inner city. So we had 50% teacher turnover rate because they didn't just go to another school. They left the teaching profession. They were like, this is not for me. This is insane. We could have saved that 50% had we taught them classroom management skills before they even stepped into the classroom, so that they at least had an idea of what to do. How to raise your voice in a purposeful way, how to lower your voice in a purposeful way. These are all strategies that can be taught and managed. How to set up your classroom so that you have, you want to set up your classroom so that you have a culture. in the classroom that everybody has bought into. Nobody likes having rules placed on them, right? So how do you build that culture together as a class so that it's a respectful environment for the teacher and for the students? And then how do you handle those misbehavior situations, and stop the chaos that is happening in a lot of these classrooms? I think so much could be done if we brought that into the college system for teachers. And I think it would really save a lot of teachers from leaving.
Yeah, I agree. They're also underappreciated and underpaid. So, those are other things that I think factor in. I mean, my sister is a teacher in the Bronx in New York, and a lot of these kids come in and English isn't their first language. So I think you got the
Yeah.
language barrier on top of some of the behavioral issues that you're talking about. And it just builds one on top of the other. And before you know it, it's just very overwhelming. So
Yeah.
we got to do something to fix all of that. And I like your idea. I think with classroom management makes a lot of sense to me. We should also talk about online tutoring because this was a huge revelation for you. You began
Mhm.
researching all the big tutoring companies to see if they were hiring, and you quickly got disappointed because you saw that they only paid anywhere between 10 to 15 bucks an hour. And you realized that your worth was way more than that, and you began putting the pieces in place to start your own tutoring business. And all these other companies, these big organizations, they knew how to market their own business, but you as an independent really didn't know how to do that. So how did you
Right.
figure all of this out?
Well, 5 failed businesses. Okay. So I ended up leaving the teaching world. I tried going to another school, seeing if the world was going to be a better place. The grass was greener over at another school closer to home. It wasn't. It was actually worse. I was dealing now with a lot of politics that I hadn't had to deal with in the school that I was at before, and I was just really, really frustrated. And so I ended up getting sick. I ended up getting a pain in my side that wouldn't go away. I would wake up in the morning, it would be okay, and then as the day would go on, this pain would get worse and worse and worse to the point where I was bedridden. So I was in and out of the hospital for a good 3 months before I actually took a leave of absence from the teaching world. And then I came back, and I sat in my seat at my office, and I just had this voice that said to me, "You're not meant to be here." And my heart dropped, because imagine all this education that I've put into learning everything about reading, wanting to make a difference, right? And now what am I going to do? Right? Like, I'm not happy here doing this. And so I did not sign my contract to come back the next year. I took a 1-year leave of absence to figure out what I wanted to do. And in that meantime, tried 5 businesses that I failed at, but learned from every single one of those. And it wasn't until the next year after that that I was like, wait a minute, what if I took my skill of teaching reading, which I love to do it online, which allows me to be at home and still take care of my kids, and make that my business. And so idea number 6, finally blew out of the water. And instead of getting paid $10 to $15 an hour, I said, let me try 40. I know some people that are making 40. I have a lot of background, education. Let me get some experience in actually doing this. And then the next year, because I had a lot of students, I ended up raising my prices to 50, and people were still hiring me without a problem. They were like, yeah, this is great. And then I got book solid at 50. And then a few years later, I moved it to 75. And today, now I'm making $100 an hour, being able to run my own tutoring business, do what I love, be able to work with kids that I absolutely love to be able to work with. And I literally get to pinch myself every single day that this is my reality.
That's amazing. And good for you for being persistent and just battling through those other businesses until you found what worked for you. I think that takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of persistence. For me, as a serial entrepreneur, I know that struggle. But good for you on making it to the other side and making a successful business out of it. I think that's amazing. And you also have these support groups that I see for your online tutoring businesses. So why is that so beneficial to have other people in this support group to kind of mentor you along the way?
Well, when I got started, there was no support group, right? There was nothing. And I remember reading something from an amazing author who said, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but he said, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And I thought, well, that's a beautiful thought, right? Like if I want to be able to actually help tutors, why don't I actually start a support group where they can ask any question that they possibly have? Because I didn't have that when I got started. I couldn't just like reach on out. I mean, I tried to find some different websites of other tutors that were doing this, and they were busy. They were running their business, right? So they didn't really have time for me. A couple of people responded maybe once or twice with some answers to my questions, but that was it. And so I thought, I need to be the person to start this. And so I did. I started the Ultimate Support Group for Online Tutors. It had several names before that one, but none of them took off. The Ultimate Support Group, which really shares what it is, right? It's a support group specifically for tutors that they're struggling and they want some help, or they want to help others. They have that ability to do that. And it's been an amazing place for people to really get that support, or get some of those quick questions like, should I be an LLC? Should I be, they have all these different types of questions in the beginning that they're pretty easy things. You don't need to invest in a course or anything like that to get those kinds of answers. But this allows us all to come together. The coolest part is we are from all over the world, right? So if somebody asks a question, there is somebody who is awake in the world who's answering it, because we have over 10,500 members inside of that group. So it's a great place for people. If you're thinking of getting started, I invite all of your listeners, go to Facebook and join the Ultimate Support Group for Online Tutors.
I love it. That's amazing. So is this something that college students can do as a side hustle while they're at college?
Absolutely. Right now, you do not, that's the part that I love. See, when I wanted to like look at different companies to work for, which I won't name them, and they were going to pay me $10 to $15, I had to be credentialed to even work for them. And I just think, do you realize how much I spent on my education for you to pay me $10 or $15 now? I could go and work at a grocery store for $10 or $15 an hour and not have the education, and that's what you're going to pay me. So I think what's cool is that the tutoring world doesn't have those limits unless you go to work for a company. If I want to just tutor my next door neighbor, I can tutor my next door neighbor and charge them what I want to charge them, right? There are no limits. There's no rules on the government. It's kind of the Wild West a little bit. So take advantage of that. Who knows, at one point, maybe they will start putting rules and limitations on who can tutor who. I really hope they don't, because there are terrible teachers out there who could charge a ton of money for their tutoring services. And there are great teachers who can do it. There are students in college that are more than capable to help other people going through, similar classes or classes that they've been through, or even reaching out to younger kids and helping them with some of the things that they're struggling with, right? In high school or middle school or even elementary school, they can be reaching on out to be able to help, and they can charge more than what they would probably make if they were to get a part-time job.
Love it. I absolutely love that. So what grades and what subjects would make a good tutoring choice? I mean, could college students tutor other college students? Because to me, I think that's the perfect recruitment tool to get somebody into your organization, is to help them with academics, and then you've got them.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that if you first take a look at what you're passionate about, because you do not want to go into a subject that you do not enjoy. I do not enjoy teaching math as much as I enjoy teaching reading. So I don't take on math students, right? I take on reading students. Find out what your passion is, because actually when you can take on a niche, it's going to make it easier for the marketing piece. So if there's certain classes that you really enjoy taking, you can start, finding out like, where is that strength of yours, where you have this ability to explain things to other people in a way that they get it. So really take a look at where are those strengths for you, because it's going to make it easier at the end of the day when it comes to marketing your services to other people. So it doesn't have to be as complicated as what some people will make it look out to be, right? You can use websites like thumbtack.com. You can use Craigslist to reach on out. It costs $5 to create an ad on Craigslist for your tutoring services. So just find out, where is your passion for helping kids, whether it's college kids or school-aged kids, whatever it is. Find out what that passion is, because then you're going to start bringing people on in. And this is a huge referral business.
Mhm.
Huge. If you do great job with one person, guess what's going to happen? They're going to refer you to like 10 other people.
Yeah, I can see how rewarding this would be. I really can. When I went for my master's degree, I remember we had to take master's level statistics. Now, this class was like the buzzsaw. I mean, everybody had to go through it, and you had some people that were like, I don't know, some major that had absolutely nothing to do with the School of Business, and they would have to go through statistics. Now, this was not easy for them. Our teacher, God bless him. I mean, I love him. He's a great guy, but he literally had worked for NASA before he came to teach statistics
Oh
on our
boy.
campus. And so he was like, the way that he was explaining all of this stuff was just really difficult for most students to absorb. And I remember all the students in class just getting really frustrated because they couldn't really understand what he was talking about in class. And it spilled over into a conversation outside of our classroom. And I remember all of our cars were parked right outside the classroom. And they all came to me. They're like, Mike, we don't understand what's going on. Clearly you do. Can you help us? So I literally had all of my notes on the hood of my car right outside of the classroom. And I'm actually going through the whole lesson that day to explain it to all the college students. And they're all sitting there nodding and they're like, oh, okay, I get it. And you can see I'm literally teaching the class outside on the hood of my car. And wouldn't you know it, the professor walks out of the building. He sees me holding class on my car.
Ah,
He looks at me, he starts laughing, he shakes his head, he walks away. And then I got an email later that day. He's like, so Mike, I saw you teaching class yesterday. He said, did the students get it when you taught it? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I think they did.
oh my gosh, I love it.
And
That is
so,
amazing.
yeah, but it did. It felt really good. I mean, it felt, number one, it helped me with my knowledge of that particular subject to kind of reinforce everything that I was learning because I knew it better by teaching it to other students. And it just felt good to
Yes.
help people, so I can see why the reward is there for you. I really can.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point because when we do teach something, so even you could be tutoring people that are in the same class and you're really good at it and it's making sense for you, you can do that as well because it will help you retain the information even better when you teach it to other people. For
100%. I think
sure.
I aced that course mainly because I just taught it so many times that it just stuck in my head and I couldn't get rid of it. So that's
Mhm.
another way I think to really excel in a course is to teach it to others as you're going through it. So I love that.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about best practices because I'm sure there are things you learned along the way. I made a ton of mistakes in starting my entrepreneurial ventures. I know you did too, but you're better because of those mistakes. So, what do you wish that somebody would have told you before you started this online tutoring business?
Oh, before I started the online tutoring business, I wish somebody would have told me that if I make a website, that they won't necessarily come. Because a lot of people, there's this whole like build it and they will come idea. And it's so false. Today, there are so many websites out there that people don't know that your website exists unless you are pointing them to it. So having different strategies to point people to your website without being like, hey guys, I'm hiring. The other big thing that I would have died to know ahead of time is that when you are marketing to people, it's all about them and it has nothing to do with you. I mean, yes, you have an experience, but you need to share that experience in a way that is talking from the point of view of your ideal student. So what I mean by that is we don't just put down our credentials and that kind of stuff when we're marketing. Like, I have a degree in blank, or I have been teaching this for blank years. Well, some of that can add credibility to what it is that you do. Or I got an A in this class. You really want to talk about things from the point of view of your ideal client. What are they struggling with? What are they feeling? What are they currently doing? When we can speak from their perspective, we all of a sudden have content that when they read, it pops and they're like, yes, I want to work with you. So, for example, if they're feeling frustrated because their teacher currently right now worked at NASA before, and now they're teaching this class, you could say something like, you ever feel frustrated because it seems like the way that your teacher is teaching this specific class, you don't get it? I was there too. And I dug my heels in and decided to learn everything I could about this subject. And I would love to be able to help you too. Right. In fact, I ended up getting an A when I took this course because I made it my passion to be able to learn everything that I could. And today people tell me I can explain it to them better than their teacher could.
Mhm.
Right. It has such a bigger impact on people when you have that kind of copy versus I could teach this statistics class.
Yep. Those are great tips that I think anybody that is looking to start a business, you better be listening to that and go back and hit rewind and listen to it again. Because ultimately, same thing is true for the speaking business. Just because you have a speaker website does not mean that your phone is going to ring off the hook. I'm sorry, but it is just not going to happen.
Right.
People need to see you and feel you and hear you in order to book you and have confidence that you're going to go out there and do a great job on stage. So I think that's super, super important. So I love all of that. And then, just talking from your customer's perspective in terms of the copy that's on the website, in terms of the copy of what you are approaching your customers with, whether that be by email, by phone, video, whatever, you're 100% right. You got to talk to them from their perspective, not your perspective. That's just a common mistake that a lot of new entrepreneurs would make. So those are great little nuggets there. And obviously, you talked about the 5 businesses that you started that just didn't work out the way that you wanted to. So I'm wondering, in talking to other college students here today, how can you continue working on all of your goals even after maybe things don't go your way and the business fails?
I think it's clarity. It comes down to clarity for every time you step into something new, you gain more clarity into what it is that you want to do. So never think of it necessarily as a failure, but more as I got clearer on what I do want and what I do want to create. And if you want to go solo, like you don't want to work for like another business, and you want to start your own business, you can create a business in just about everything. Just make sure that people actually want it. That was one of the biggest clarity ideas that I got so I made these wonderful crocheted blankets, right? How cheap is a blanket when you go to the store, right? The amount that people were willing to pay for a blanket didn't even cost for the materials of what it was that I was making. So I gained clarity. I realized I love crocheting, but I love crocheting as a hobby and not as my business. And I love the joy I get when I get to give somebody a blanket that I made versus making them pay for a blanket that I made. And so it's okay to keep a hobby as a hobby and not turn it into a business. And when you do create a business, if that's what you choose to do, when you are creating a business, you want to make sure that you separate your business from any of your philanthropic endeavors. Like for example, as a tutor, we oftentimes like to give our tutoring services for free, right? But if we're turning it into a business, we can't have this. I'm going to give it free to some, and I'm going to, make other people pay all this money. If they talk to each other, you're going to have issues. So you have to kind of keep your business, your hobbies, and your volunteer opportunities and things that you do to serve other people all separate. And it will actually make you a happier person at the end of the day, because your hobby now is something that you can turn to when you need to de-stress. Your business is something that can make you money and pay the bills. And then your volunteer is going to make you feel like a better person because you're helping other people on out, and they all have that different purpose.
Love it. Great points there. Now, we do love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. And I know you're out in Wisconsin. So if I make it back to your area of the country, what's your favorite restaurant in town?
My favorite restaurant,
here we go.
Drum roll, please. It's called Good Eats. And it's a little restaurant in my hometown in Sussex, Wisconsin. And they really do have good eats. It's just very non-traditional food. And my favorite food there is the breakfast flatbread. So it's got bacon on provolone Parmesan cheese. It's got roasted mushrooms, and it's got some kind of like a balsamic kind of like sauce on it. And it comes with an egg, and it is just the most die for delicious food ever. Who would think like you can make a breakfast pizza that just tastes that good? But I know there are a lot of people, they're like, but Joanne, that's not very like a Wisconsin-y food. I know, I got you. All right. So if you want Wisconsin-y food, just try out Saz's restaurant. The broths there are fantastic. And they have these sour cream chive fries that are amazing.
Sounds wonderful. You got something in there for everybody. I love it. You got the
Yes.
brats, you got the breakfast foods, the breakfast pizza, whatever you want. I love it. It sounds really good. And now you're making me hungry. So that's good. I'm going to have to go get something to eat. So if our college student listeners want to contact you, maybe for a side hustle opportunity as an online tutor, maybe they want to ask you some questions about setting up their own business, where is the best place for them to go and reach you?
You know what? My inbox gets so filled these days. But if you reach out to me on Facebook and you want to be friends with me, my name's Joanne Kaminski. You'll see me on there. Similar image to what you'll see on the podcast. Definitely reach on out to me and let's become friends and begin the conversation. I can definitely guide you into all the right places so that you can get started. And I also have written the book, How to Start an Online Tutoring Business. If you're just looking for some quick tips right out of the gate, that you can check that book on out. It's on Amazon. And the other opportunity I have is, look, if you're just looking for some ways to get students, go to onlinetutorcoach.com/50, and I will send you a workbook which will give you 50 plus ways to get online tutoring students, and it will guide you in all of the different strategies that you can try to be able to get students for yourself.
That is fantastic. Now everybody has a whole bunch of homework to do. You're going to be checking out Joanne Kaminski on Facebook. You're going to be checking out her offers, her website, all of that good stuff. This has been so helpful. Thank you so much for sharing all of this information with all of our student listeners. To our listeners, if you like Joanne's talk today, make sure you like it and share it with other students on campus that are looking to make some additional money, maybe set up their own tutoring business to make some additional money while they're at school. And Joanne, you're the best. What can I say? Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Michael. It's been a blast.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much. And we hope to see everybody on the next episode of Fraternity Foodie. Thanks so much. Bye for now.